Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the TED in Your Head podcast. Thanks so much for taking the time to tune in. I'm your host, Ted Moreno. I'm a certified hypnotherapist and high performance coach, and I've been doing this for 23 years, and I have to say that I love my job. What my job is to work with people, work with clients to help them be free from the stuff in their minds that keeps them from health, happiness, and success. You know, I've heard it said, and maybe you have too, that people are 6 inches from success, which is the distance between their own two ears. So it's our subconscious programming that often holds us back from what we want, even though consciously we may want success or happiness or health. Many times it's our subconscious programming that's holding us back because those are the knowns. That's the programming. As a hypnotherapist, that's the area that I work in. I help my clients to be able to transform their lives by transforming their thinking. Now, today we'll be talking about catastrophizing. And if that's something you struggle with, I will tell you how to get in touch with me a little bit later at the end of our show so you can request a free consultation. But for now, let's talk about how to stop catastrophizing and cope. So, I'm sure you've had the experience of being up in your head, imagining that something terrible will happen, and then nothing terrible happens. Or whatever happens is no big deal, right? So you're creating fear, you're imagining, you're like, what if this, what if that, right? And then it's nothing. It's a nothing burger, right? So this is called catastrophizing, which is also known as cognitive distortion. Catastrophizing is a mental habit where your thoughts immediately jump to the worst possible outcome, even when there's little or no evidence for that. What it is, essentially, it's using the power of your wonderful imagination to play out in your mind some scenario of impending doom and catastrophe, even though you may know that it's not going to happen or highly unlikely to happen. Now, this isn't just normal worry. It's a pattern of inflating or magnifying danger in your mind until it feels real and like it's really going to happen. So it's important to understand at this point that your brain treats imagined threats just like real ones. And this can trigger anxiety and stress responses because your subconscious mind, your mind can't distinguish between reality and fantasy. So if you imagine something, you fantasize about something bad happening, your body's going to respond as if it was really happening or as if it was really going to happen. Obviously, this habit can create fertile ground in your mind for anxiety by turning even small concerns into emotionally overwhelming fears. And it happens automatically. Before you even realize it started, you're down the road to catastrophe. Our nervous system interprets imagined threats as actual danger. So just thinking those thoughts can activate these stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, and other stress hormones that put us into that fight flight response. So, how does catastrophizing show up in real life? Well, let's say that you have a presentation to do at school or work. You're going to get up, you're going to do a presentation, but in your mind, you're imagining that you're going to totally bomb, you're going to totally embarrass yourself. You immediately start thinking you're going to fail at that presentation. So much so that you try to figure out a way not to do it. So that would be an example. Or another example would be you get some ambiguous text from your significant other, and it says something like, we need to talk, or you have some time to talk later on. And immediately, right, your mind starts going to, oh man, what's going to happen? Am I in trouble? Oh, they're going to break up with me, or oh, we're going to get into a big fight, right? Just because of a text message. Or Realize one day that you forgot to pay your car payment. Maybe you're a day late or a week late, right? And your mind immediately starts thinking, "Oh my God, they're going to repossess my car." Right? And oh, what am I going to do if I don't have a car? And down and on and on and on. So then your mind immediately starts going to, why am I so irresponsible? Why can't I be on top of this? What's wrong with me? I'm going to end up poor and broke. So it's the two arrow theory, right? I read somewhere the two arrow theory. The first arrow you shoot yourself with is that you feel bad about making a mistake. And the second arrow is what you make that mean, like you're terrible or you're irresponsible or you're a loser, right? So other patterns include jumping from this is uncomfortable to this will ruin everything, right? So that's a pretty big jump, like, oh, this is uncomfortable to, oh my God, this is going to ruin everything. Another pattern is minimizing evidence that it's not a big deal and magnifying negatives like, oh, this is going to happen and that going to happen. And we all know, we all do this and we all know people that do this a lot, right? Believing that if something bad could happen, it's going to happen or it's likely to happen, even when facts don't support that. So, this is a perfect example of what we call cognitive distortion, just another word for catastrophizing. So you should understand that your brain evolved to prioritize the ability to detect danger. But this makes your mind prone to assume the worst, especially when there's uncertainty, right? So your mind's looking for danger. In your mind, uncertainty indicates danger, even though there's no danger present. So it's kind of hardwired into our head. And this leads to overestimating the probability of negative outcomes, feeling stress for events that haven't happened, trying to control the unknown by imagining it, or what we call anticipatory anxiety, right? So anticipating something bad, feeling the stress or anxiety now. This is also known as anticipation bias. Now, this can become a very bad habit. Catastrophizing is a habit rooted in fear. So the mind's trying to protect you, but it overdoes it. And obviously, this can be very disruptive to your peace of mind and to your ability to feel in control. Furthermore, and think about this, catastrophizing is focusing your mind on what you don't want. And what you focus on has a tendency to grow. In our lives, what we focus on has a tendency to grow. And this is not a good strategy for attracting into our lives the things we want. So, how do we stop catastrophizing and shift our minds into coping and dealing with what's going on in our lives in an effective way? Well, I'll tell you. Here are some concrete, actionable ways to interrupt these patterns of catastrophization and reduce the emotional impact. So here's the first thing. Get some perspective and notice when you're doing it. Notice when catastrophizing is happening. So the first step is recognition. Become aware of the thought pattern as it starts. Once you notice it's catastrophizing instead of reality-based thinking, then you can start to slow it down. Now, we need to have some perspective. We all make mistakes. We all screw stuff up. Sometimes things don't work out. Bad things do happen, and it's not always a catastrophe. Now, sometimes catastrophes happen, but they're usually few and far between. And how do we deal with catastrophe? I've made a podcast on that. I'll provide a link in the show notes. That's a conversation for another time. But typically, if something goes wrong, it just means that we're human, right? We made a mistake. So we want to notice the tendency when we're starting to catastrophize. Next, you want to question the negative thoughts. You want to ask yourself, how do I know this will happen? Do I have evidence for this worst case scenario that I'm imagining? Or another question to ask yourself is there another plausible outcome? So this is a way to avoid falling into what I call the what if pit, right? The what if pit is, oh my God, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if, what if, what if? And once you fall into the what if pit, it's kind of hard to get out. That's when you really start to scare the poop out of yourself. I call that scat pooey. And I've done a couple of podcasts on that. Scat pooey is short for scaring the poop out of yourself. Don't do that. And another way you can stop from doing that is you can say to yourself, stop, or knock it off, or what are you doing when you notice yourself engaged in imagining some catastrophe that you don't want. You can say, whoa, 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 stop, 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 knock it off, knock it off. Okay. Next, the next step is to ground yourself in the present. Feel your body, breathe, and return your attention to what's actually happening right now, not to imagine threats. This stops your mind from spiraling out of control and keeps you from falling into the what if pit. So you can say things to yourself such as, even though I'm imagining this scary thing, right now, right here, it's not happening and everything is okay. Then you can take some steps to handle the situation or do damage control. So if you realize you didn't make your car payment, you can call the car loan company and say, hey, just want to let you know I forgot my car payment. I'm going to make that right now. Or, I'm a little tight on money. I might need a week. These people are always willing to work with you as long as you get in touch with them. So there's always something you can do for damage control. But you're not going to do that if you're up in your head freaking out. So you need to get into your body, get present to what's happening now so you can take effective action. The next step is to change your internal language. So what you say to yourself is key and it's critical. The words you use with yourself matter. So you want to shift from this catastrophe is coming to I don't know what'll happen, but I can handle what's real right now. So this reframes thoughts from fear into possibility. So now, instead of falling into the what if pit, you can get on the what if escalator, right? That's when you start asking yourself, what if everything's going to be okay? What if it all works out? What if my situation resolves in the best possible way? Now you're using your powerful imagination to focus on what you want, and then your mind starts creating solutions when you're asking the right kind of questions. Okay? Then you can follow this up with some positive affirmations, and I'm a huge fan of positive affirmations. Positive affirmations such as, I can deal with this. I've got it. I can figure this out. I can prepare for this. I have what it takes to respond effectively to this challenge. Or, one of my favorites, I trust myself and I trust my abilities and I trust my resourcefulness to handle this situation. So, affirmations are best done first thing in the morning and last thing before you go to bed. We're in hypnosis at those times. I say affirmations all day long, especially if I'm challenged. I'm always talking to myself in a very positive way, which is something I had to learn. And now I'm pretty good at it because I've practiced. Okay? So, a great affirmation that you can say first thing in the morning is, I think about the best, I expect the best, and I'm preparing for the best. Okay? So keep in mind that mindset and habits change over time. This is not something you fix instantly. You need to practice and develop a new habit. So you can build that kind of reality mind by repeatedly interrupting catastrophizing and replacing it with grounded, evidence-based thinking. Over time, your awareness becomes sharper. So you're more aware of when you start to catastrophize. Your reactions become calmer. You're able to say, okay, let's just breathe. Let's just be here right now. And you stop giving emotional weight to imagined worst outcomes. It's easier for you to say, that may or may not happen. Let's take care of business now, right? So I want to emphasize, and this is important, listen up. Thoughts are not always facts. Most of the time, they're not. Awareness is power. And just because your brain imagines something catastrophic doesn't make it likely or real. And recognizing this is the first step towards emotional freedom. Remember that uncertainty does not equal danger, and you don't need certainty to be okay. You can be powerful in the face of uncertainty. This is something you can practice and get good at. So, here's a simple, practical step-by-step routine that you can use daily or whenever you catch yourself spiraling down into the what if pit. Remember that I teach gentle awareness, not fighting your mind. And I want to remind you that if you go to tedmoreno.com/blog, you can read this as a blog post and you can copy and paste these step-by-step practices. So, step number one, catch the catastrophe early. Notice as soon as you can the tendency to begin to catastrophize. So as soon as you feel anxiety spike, pause and ask yourself, am I predicting a worst case future right now? Am I predicting disaster? So you're not trying to stop the thought, you're just labeling it, right? So you're saying to yourself, okay, this is catastrophizing. This is my mind jumping ahead. This is a thought, not a fact. I'm doing it right now and I'm noticing that. So naming it creates distance. You're no longer inside the thought, now you're observing it. Step two, slow the body first. Catastrophizing lives in the nervous system, not in logic. So take 1 to 2 minutes to take 5 slow, deep breaths. Exhale slightly longer than you inhale. Feel your feet, feel the chair, feel your hands. Get into your body. You can use deep breathing like box breathing. So box breathing is you inhale for 4, you hold for 4, you exhale for 8, right? So that's box breathing. There's different ways to do it. The way I do it is inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8. The exhalation twice as long as the inhalation. There's also the 3-3-3 rule. Some people call it the 3-2-1 rule. I call it the 3-3-3 rule. Identify 3 things you can see, 3 things you can hear, 3 body parts you can move. And you do this to ground yourself in the present. You can say silently to yourself, right now, I am safe. Now, this step matters more than people think. It's very powerful. A calm mind equals a calm body. A calm body equals a calm mind. Number 3, step 3, reality check your thought. So you can write it down or you can say it mentally. What am I afraid will happen? What do I think is going to happen? Be specific. Vague fears are much more difficult to challenge. You can ask yourself, what evidence do I have that this will definitely happen? Usually there's very little evidence. And the third question you can write down or say to yourself is, what are 2 to 3 other realistic outcomes? Include neutral or mildly positive ones. Not just everything's fine, but, well, this can happen or that can happen or, probably not the worst thing, but, maybe uncomfortable, right? So instead of the catastrophic thought, this mistake will ruin everything, alternatives might be, it might be uncomfortable but manageable. Or it could be a non-issue. Or I've handled similar things before. Step number 4. Here's how you shift from prediction or catastrophizing to coping. So instead of asking, what if it goes wrong? You can ask yourself, if this did happen, how would I handle this? So this reminds your brain that you're capable, you're resourceful, and you're not helpless. even a simple answer in your mind like, well, I could ask for help or I'd deal with it step by step. Even that's enough. Like, I can deal with this. Step number 5, return to the present moment. So catastrophizing lives in the future. Ground yourself by naming 3 things you can see, 3 things you can hear, 3 things you can feel in your body, or 3 parts of your body you can move. Then gently redirect your attention to what you were doing before the spiral. And of course, let me add that it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, that basic self-care and mindfulness practices can help you feel centered and grounded and allow you to get better at letting go of negative thoughts instead of attaching to them. I'm also a big fan of journaling. So a daily journaling prompt is something that you can do once a day, and you'll want to do it when you're panicking, but once a day, you can write a common catastrophe my mind creates is, and then write down kind of the go-to catastrophe that you usually go to when you're, freaking out. Or you can write what usually actually happens instead. Another prompt, what I want to practice believing is. So for instance, what I want to practice believing is I have the resources, the intellect, and the strength to deal with whatever shows up in my life. And I think that's true for most of us, right? So these are good journaling prompts. A common catastrophe my mind creates is what usually actually happens instead is what I want to practice believing is. So this builds awareness before anxiety hits. And let me give you an important mindset reminder. You're not trying to eliminate negative thoughts. You're not trying to force some unrealistic positivity. You're not trying to win an argument with your mind. You're practicing not taking every thought seriously. You're practicing staying grounded in reality. You're practicing responding instead of reacting. That's called being responsible, right? Catastrophizing weakens through repetition and kindness to yourself. Doesn't weaken through pressure. So let me remind you a couple of things that I already said. Thoughts are not always facts. Uncertainty does not always mean danger. You don't need certainty to be okay. And practice means you get good at stopping catastrophizing. So there you go. I hope you found this podcast helpful. Just a reminder that you can watch this podcast if you're not watching already. You can watch this on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and type in the @ sign at Ted A. Moreno or search for Ted A. Moreno Certified Hypnotherapist, and you can watch this on YouTube. You can follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I've been told I should get on TikTok, so I'm thinking about doing that. Not quite convinced yet, but I'm out there on social media, including YouTube, of course. And if you want to read this as a blog, as I mentioned, you can go to tedmoreno.com/blog, and you can find this. It's going to be at the top. Now, if you want to get in touch with me, if you're really struggling with this tendency to catastrophize, if you need help, what you do is you go to tedmoreno.com. That's my website. You click on the contact menu, and there's a little contact box. You can enter your name and your email, and you can say, "Hey, Ted, I saw your podcast. I'd like to have a conversation about how you can help me with catastrophizing or general negativity or anxiety." So you send that off to me, and when I get it, now you got to give me maybe 24 to 48 hours, right, to get back to you. But we'll schedule a complimentary consultation. We'll have a conversation. I'll tell you all about hypnosis, what it is and what it isn't. tell you all the details, how it works. And then if you're ready, we can schedule your first hypnotherapy session over Zoom, or if you're local to SoCal, we can do it in person. Sound good? Let me leave you with a quote. Know the difference between an inconvenience and a catastrophe. Bruce Lee said that. Thank you, Mr. Bruce Lee. And thank you for tuning in and listening to me on the Ted in Your Head podcast. Take good care of yourself, be kind, and take care of somebody else if you can as well. Bye now.